Hey everybody, and welcome to Q&A Wednesday, where I answer the questions that you have about your health and fitness goals. Now, this is kind of a fun one because, I have a lot of people tell me, well, I don't have a sweet tooth. I don't eat a lot of sugar. I'm like, oh, let's talk about that, because sugar is sometimes where we least expect it. So that's why we're talking about whether or not you are secretly addicted to sugar, because sugar comes in places you don't expect. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about that. The first thing I wanna talk about tonight is why sugar is such a problem. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're really having a health issue in this country, and I don't even mean the virus. I just mean in general, our health in this country is plummeting. It's starting to cost, taxpayers and anyone who is dealing with their medical bills, really starting to understand that it's having a huge implication on where our funds are going. And part of it is just our food today is not keeping, let's just say our bodies are not designed to keep up evolutionary wise with the way that our food system has changed and what is available to us to eat. And I personally think that anything that is not real food should not be called food. So anything that's boxed, full of additives and preservatives and chemicals, shelf stable, I don't think we should call it food, because it's really not food. Food is something designed to nourish our bodies and keep us full of energy and optimal when it comes to our health and fitness. And I don't think that that's what the majority of our country is eating. So it's very, very frustrating. Pay attention, because right now we're at like 47-ish% of our population is now diabetic, pre-diabetic, or obese. And I just find that maybe it's overweight, but still, we're talking big. No, I'm pretty sure it's obese, because 75% of Americans are overweight. Phenomenal numbers, and it's just not okay. And part of the frustration is that, number one, we're not taught correctly what nutrition really means, and any information that we're given is actually kind of antiquated. We've updated. The research is coming in, so even the things that people are learning in their nutrition courses are actually really old news and incorrect. But the other problem is that the food industry does not make this easy. They want us to be addicted to food. That's why they have food labs where they particularly build flavor profiles that are designed to be hyper palatable, that we can't stop eating. We can't help it. We become addicted to it. So let's talk a little bit about sugar addiction, what that is and what that means for most of us. Anybody who has a sweet tooth knows that it's really difficult when we start eating sugar to stop eating sugar. I would be one of those people, because it's just a struggle. Like, I like my chocolate. I like sweets. So it's really been difficult, to make sure that the majority of the food that I eat is very clean and very healthy for me. And then once in a while, I will have something extra, that's sweet. But I do at this point stay away from a lot of things that are commercially made at the store, because they don't even taste good anymore, to be honest. I'd much rather go to a restaurant and have a pastry that the chef has prepared. But keep in mind that it's not just sugar, the sweets that are doing it to us. We'll talk a little bit about Savory Foods in a minute. But the one thing that you should understand is how sugar biologically works within our system. There is a reward circuit, right? That dopamine release. When you start to look at how the brain reacts to sugar when it's ingested, it lights up the same part of our brain as cocaine. So that dopamine response, or that feel-good response, unfortunately, it's very similar. As a matter of fact, some of the research shows, when they did these experiments with lab rats, that the rats actually preferred the sugar over the cocaine, which I find really fascinating at this point. So, and of course, it's really difficult to get away from that sugar. So it's not like we can just quit it like other substances. We tend to still find it in our food. So let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about when I mean are you secretly addicted? Now, first of all, if you really pay attention to the food labels, and not just the nutrition portion of it, because honestly, that does not give us enough information. You really have to pay attention to the ingredient list, because if you do, you're going to find some things that you're really surprised about. The first surprise that you're going to find is that there are sugar in things that you would not expect. Now, maybe you've heard, but ketchup tends to contain a lot of sugar. Salad dressings have a lot of sugar. Spaghetti sauces, a lot of times they balance out that flavor by adding something sweet to the salty, or salty to the sweet, to make sure it's not overwhelming. But if you really pay attention, not only are you going to find that there's sugar in so many things you would be surprised at, it might say 0 sugars on the label, but they've learned to use a loophole in order to actually include sugars by listing the different types of sugar independently. And because it's not enough to register, there's a little loophole that if it has less than 0.5 grams per serving size, that they don't have to include it as being a full gram of sugar. So there might be sugar in there and you're going, but it says no sugar. You're going to have to learn to read the label because it makes a whole lot of sense once you know what you're looking for. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But let's talk about what other things you might be surprised that you find sugar in. Some of them you won't be surprised, but some of them you might be. You know, things like juice. I don't know about you, but growing up, I thought that juice was healthy because it's a fruit and fruits are healthy. But unfortunately, juice strips all of the things from the actual fruit that slows down the sugar absorption into our bloodstream. So unfortunately, so when we eat the actual fruit, we're getting the vitamins, the minerals, and the fiber that slows down the absorption rate of that sugar to your bloodstream. With the juice, that fiber's gone. They've taken out the pulp and all those things that can slow down the absorption rate. So, you know, when people tell me, well, I juice all the time, and I'm like, I hope you mean vegetables, because even there, that can actually degrade some of the nutrients as well. So yeah, juice from concentrate, things that we used to think was super healthy, it's pure sugar, right? So be aware of that. Also things like yogurt, you know, you have to really pay attention. I think the yogurt with the least amount of sugar in it is that new Too Good brand, TWOGOOD. I believe it has 2 grams of sugar per the 5.3 ounce container. Everything else, the lowest I can find is like 6 grams per serving size. And I've seen it as much as 34 grams in a serving size of yogurt. And we're even talking Greek yogurt that tends to have more protein in it. So know what's in your product, read the labels, read the ingredients, pay attention to those things. Other things that we don't think about, things like applesauce, right? Even the unsweetened applesauce, again, because we've broken down the fiber of the product, you're going to get more of the sugar, even if it's unsweetened. It's natural sugars. So although natural sugar is better than added sugars, we still have to pay attention, because even for things like fruit, when diabetics start to look at their nutrition plan, they need to realize fruit is not unlimited, because again, it's high in natural sugar, which your body doesn't necessarily know the difference. It still spikes insulin. It still has to be very specific with what it does, so it doesn't get toxic within your system. But it's not a free-for-all. So again, you just have to know how that works, and you have to be able to budget what you're doing with it. Other things that you might be surprised with, well, maybe not. Gatorade and some of those sports drinks that are supposed to help replenish the electrolytes. Yeah, wow, just like cans of soda, there is a lot of sugar in there, and sometimes we don't think about it because we drink it. Now, of course, if you're getting the ones that are 0 calorie, again, to an extent, those can be sugar-free, but what I'm going to tell you is you have to watch out, because if it says sucralose, sucralose is still a sugar. Sucralose, also known as Splenda, is a sugar derivative. And so although they say that it is safe for diabetics, the research shows that it does spike blood sugar and insulin. So you just have to know how these really work. The food industry, unfortunately, is going to use tactics to make you think things are healthy because they want to sell more when they're really not. So you have to be your own best advocate. That's part of it. Other things to watch out for: granola bars, granola, cereal. Of course, even a cereal that I thought was healthy as a kid, like Cheerios. Oh, you guys, just literally, you might as well eat a Pop-Tart. So keep in mind that those products have been designed because they are processed food. Even if they're enriched with vitamins, which means nothing because they're synthetic, it's still not healthy options. So better ideas, really work to get your protein in there and avoid processed foods, because they do break down into sugar super, super quickly in your system. All right, so let's talk a little bit about savory foods, because a lot of people tell me, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't have a sweet tooth. I just tend to really like bread and pasta, and even something as easy as potatoes. Now, potatoes are a little bit different, because if you cook them and cool them, they become something called a resistant starch. It changes the chemistry of the potato, and it's slower to break down into sugar as something that you've just cooked. But it can still be a problem. So again, it really kind of depends on what your goals are and your genetics. But things that you don't normally think of: bread immediately, if you've ever bitten into a piece of bread or toast and you kind of have that sweet taste in your mouth, you produce the enzymes that break down carbohydrates in your saliva. So as soon as it touches your tongue, your body anticipates that, and it produces the enzyme that helps break it down, and that's why you taste the sweet. So those things, pasta, breads, crackers, those break down into sugar immediately into your bloodstream. So although you might not think of them as being sugar because they're not sweet, they are, right? So again, one of the things that I learned over the years as I pay attention to how the food pyramid changes, don't even get me started, when it used to be 6 to 11 servings of grains. Okay, that's why we're having a problem in this country. Again, we just haven't been taught correctly what that really means for our system. So again, pay attention. Is it a processed carbohydrate? Because The process itself makes it a simple sugar, and so it immediately becomes a sugar into your bloodstream. Other things to really pay attention to that you might find sugar and be surprised. Soups, nut butter. Nut butter is a pretty big range. You know, I use Adams because it does not have any added sugar, or I grind my own at some of the stores that have that. But if you start paying attention to some of them, so like Jif and some other ones, or if they've started to add flavorings like chocolate, they're much, much higher in sugar. So just because it's a nut butter and you think that's healthy, yeah, you gotta, again, you just need to do your own due diligence. Pay attention to the products that you use and know what that really means for what it's doing to your system, whether that's hitting sugar or not. Coffee drinks, I know that's a really easy one. You know, you go to Starbucks and you're like, I want the frou-frou, mocha chocolate, whatever. Yeah, as many as 80 some grams of sugar. So again, that's more than you should have even in a day. So keep that in mind that personally, I don't want to drink my calories. I don't want to drink sugar, to be honest, because it's kind of like liquid crack, right? It just goes immediately to your system. And really be careful of things like instant rice, instant oatmeal, those kind of things. Number one, they tend to, because they've been stripped of their husk, it tends to hit your system faster as sugar. Not only that, but things like the instant oatmeal contains flavorings that is full of sugar as well. So again, you just have to know what you're looking for. So things that you want to do when you're looking at a product, when you're reading the label, just because it says healthy on there, it means absolutely nothing to me. The first thing I do is flip it over and look at the ingredient list. If it has anything ending in OSE, O-S-E, that is a type of sugar. So you have to, and like I said, sometimes they'll do this whole, like, there's gonna be 4 or 5 different kinds of sugar in there listed separately. And so they're able to kind of make it seem like there's not as much as there really is. Other things to look for, syrups, high fructose corn syrup. And listen, even if it says organic, like organic coconut sugar, it's still sugar. So, you know, just because it's a natural form, like maybe natural maple syrup straight from the tree, again, your body still treats that the same. While something that is not like a chemically processed sugar is obviously not as good as something that's natural. Again, there's a few things that depends on, like what you're eating at the same time and some other things, but if you're really trying to go low sugar, you're trying to detox from sugar, you're going to want to cut all those things out. It is really easy to get a lot of sugar within your day and literally have no idea that that's happening. So keep that in mind. Something else that I find really super interesting is, again, the labels don't always give you the full story. They make it sound healthy. Just because it's a product that says protein does not make it a health food. So my favorite are the protein cookies. Listen, guys, I don't care if it says protein. You eat that entire cookie, you're eating 30 grams of sugar. So again, you have to learn to read the label. You have to look past the gimmicks that they're doing and really make sure that you know what you're eating and why. Okay, so kind of covered that. Really quickly, I want to talk about sugar substitutes. So just because some sugar substitutes have already been shown to cause cancer in lab rats, and I mean, come on, like at this point, if we know that there could be a problem, wouldn't you just rather avoid it? Things like aspartame, and again, even sucralose can be a problem, especially in large quantities. If your body tastes sweet, its response is insulin because it is anticipating that you are eating something that is sweet. Now, our ancestors needed that ability, right? There were in times of plenty, they needed to eat enough food and store it on their bodies that when there wasn't enough food, and there was a famine, or nothing was available, that their body could burn that down. We don't have that problem anymore. We have food readily available 24/7, 365. So that sweet kind of does us a disservice. Not only that, but again, the food industry has found this way to produce foods that tap into that without the nourishment or the vitamins and minerals that normally would come with that to tell the body that we're actually getting what we need. So again, it kind of sidesteps this trap of not allowing your body's leptin to spike to let you know that you're full. It becomes a problem. It messes with our hormones, and then we aren't satiated. We keep being hungry. So that's one of the problems with some of those products. You have to be careful with all of the sugar substitutes and options. Even the sugar alcohols can cause extreme digestive distress if you're not careful. They can change your microbiome, which is a huge part of your health. And if you don't know anything about that, that is something really interesting and a good idea to research. Last thing I really want to talk to you about is sugar withdrawals, because that is a real thing. Just grab a little bit of water here. Got cotton mouth today. when you stop eating sugar, especially if you tend to eat large quantities of it, you may very well go through a physical withdrawal. I know I do. So things like a headache, fogginess, lethargy or fatigue, headaches is a big one. There's a real physical response when you stop ingesting that product, because of course, just like anything else that's addicting, the more you eat, the more your body needs in order to fill that same high. So keep in mind that when you do, some people say just kind of walk it down. Yeah, because it's an addicting substance, I actually recommend cold turkey. You're gonna feel like crap for a couple of days. Just make sure you get plenty of water, and hopefully your body will flush that faster. It's just beneficial to just cut it cold turkey, because otherwise sometimes it's a very difficult habit to kick. So are you secretly addicted to sugar? I don't know. You might want to just look back through what you normally eat and see all those things that might contain more sugar than you expect. So have an incredible evening, you guys. That is it for me tonight. Just wanted to answer that. Now, if you have a question, or if I didn't answer something that you're interested in, want to know about, make sure you leave a comment down below or message me directly. I do respond. So, because I love to answer questions. It's the teacher in me. She cannot help it. And that's where I get my very best ideas, is from you guys. So have an incredible night, you guys. Saturday, 10 a.m., Meals with Melissa. I always have something fun. So check that out on the same channel, Fillmore Fitness, and have a great night, you guys. Bye now.